Coming up on Hoge and Jahns, a late week check-in on a busy week for the Bears. All the free agent additions and maybe more importantly, the losses. We're going to break it all down. Plus, Jesse Merrick, who covers the Raiders. What is going on with Maxx Crosby? Is he really going to stay there now? We'll check in with Jesse. Get the latest on Maxx Crosby. It all starts right now on a live edition of Hoge and Jahns. What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns back with you. Presented by Old National Bank. Every play matters, whether it's on the field or in your financial life. The best teams win by delivering excellence at every level. Old National Bank, where relationships and results matter. Remember, FDIC. Welcome in. Late week edition. The dust is settling a little bit on free agency. Players are coming and plenty are leaving, Johnsy.
What does your shirt say there, your hoodie? Is that Do More or DJ Moore?
No, this is not DJ Moore. This is for Howard Moore. Do more, be more, for more.
Your mic is moving away.
Badger basketball assistant who's unfortunately had his life turned upside down. But they just named, well, they didn't just do this, but they named the Big Ten Assistant Coach of the Year award after Howard Moore a couple years ago, and Sharif Chambliss, one of the Badgers' assistants, just won it. So I'm just representing my guy Howard Moore and the Badgers today is the Big Ten tournament.
Of course, very good.
Underway. Yeah, but I guess it could be a Red Bills hoodie for DJ Moore.
Yeah,
it could be
that Red Bills color.
Yeah, they don't wear the red a lot, but sometimes they do. Well, DJ Moore is a Bill. A lot
Kevin
of guys
Byard is a Patriot.
Yeah,
Nahshon
a lot of
Wright
guys
is
going
a
to the
Jet.
AFC East. Yeah, it's AFC East. Bears.
It's better than the Atlanta Bears. That was a storyline for a while.
Well, they did.
It still is. Chris Williams.
Yeah, Chris Williams went to Atlanta. Tyson Bagent next? No, they went with Tua.
Today, we should say this. So it's 10 o'clock here in Chicago. If you're listening normally on your podcast, if you're watching, you obviously know it's 10 o'clock here in Chicago. But today is Meet the New Bears Day. Later at Hallis Hall, Garrett Bradbury. Actually, I think he's going to be virtually. But then you have Devin Bush, Neville Gallimore, Kobe Bryant. They will all be introduced later today at Hallis Hall. So we'll have you covered later on CHGO, correct?
Yes, I was just trying to figure that out 5 minutes before the show, but it sounds like we will be doing a 7 p.m. show, myself and Mark Carmen, to break down everything that happens at Hallis Hall today. And, of course, we'll also have you covered at Hallis Hall with, Johnsy and Pat will have everything up at allchgo.com. Plenty of coverage coming your way from, I think, if we're being honest, most importantly, Ryan Poles talks to the media today. There's a lot he has to address, including the Dalman retirement, a lot to catch up on with the general manager. So that's really the big ticket item as a bunch of new players are introduced. Ryan Poles also talking later today. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with, there was a video shared yesterday or just reshared from the Bears at the Pro Bowl. Included in that video were Drew Dalman, Kevin Byard, Nahshon Wright, and Joe Thuney. Only one of those Bears remain on the roster. One is retired. Two are playing in the AFC. What do you think?
I think more than ever, the next 6 months of drafting and development will be incredibly important. I think if you paid close attention to where the Bears were going to be this offseason, we touched on it. There were going to be some changes. But if we're being completely honest, I don't think we should downplay the magnitude of these changes. Nobody knew Drew Dalman was retiring, except for Drew Dalman and maybe his wife and family. That was even on the table, something that could potentially be coming up. We knew it was a possibility that Kevin Byard could be playing elsewhere. But this was definitely a rare case where typically, in my experience covering the NFL, when you have a team and a player both voice a desire at the end of the season to stay together, typically that's how it plays out. In this case, it did not. And he reunites with Mike Vrabel, who I know he adores and loved playing for in Tennessee. He goes to the Patriots on a 1-year, $9 million deal. The Bears right now have 2 safeties on the roster. If I'm counting correctly, it's just Elijah Hicks and Kobe Bryant, who they just signed. So still some more work to do, and I think it'll certainly be.
I think there's a couple guys on futures contracts, but just in terms of with experience, those are your 2 starters right now.
Yeah, let me look. Yes, if you would like me to accurately bring up Gervarius Owens, you are correct. He would be a he would be a safety, rounding out the 90-man roster, and we'll be in training camp. Well, probably. So yeah, but that's the point. Like on paper right now, John, I think you would agree with this. The Bears not as good of a team as they were 2 months ago when the season ended. On paper. It's only been 2 months of the offseason though. And lots of things can still change. Most importantly, and I think most NFL teams believe this, if not all of them. I know I believe this. The most important player acquisition part of your season is not free agency. It's the draft. So that's still coming up. The Bears have a bunch of picks. They have 4 in the top 89. Okay, so that's important. You can get starters with those picks. They'll be young starters, but getting younger is a way to get better over time with the big picture in mind. And so, and then there's the big piece that I feel like the Bears are in a better spot than they've ever been in my entire time covering this team, and that is developing. Because I don't remember John's covering a single season where we saw more development than we did last year with this current coaching staff. Now, the coaching staff also has some changes. There will be question marks. Eric Bieniemy's not there anymore to work with the running backs. Declan Doyle moved on. I know everybody's pretty excited about Press Taylor. I've heard some good things, from inside the building about how a bunch of players are excited about Press. So there's, while it maybe doesn't feel great right now on March 12th, I just feel like the most important part of the offseason is still coming up here in the next 6 months. And that is who you add in the draft and who you develop, not only with those draft picks this year, but your last couple of years, players that are still young and can still be molded.
Well, I find it interesting that Kevin Byard chose Mike Vrabel and Drake May over Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. I'm still not surprised by it, given his connection to Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. And we are in the part of the offseason where it's out with the old, in with the new. And I couldn't help but think of Kevin Fishbain, because if Kevin Fishbain would be on this podcast, he would be telling us, it's that part of the season where the offseason where 2 things can be true. You could be extremely optimistic about Kobe Bryant and Devin Bush. You could be excited about what they could bring to the defense, especially in terms of speed. Like, you could believe they upgrade the speed across the board and the coverage ability across the board defensively. But at the same time, you could be concerned and acknowledge that the Bears are going to miss Kevin Byard, Tremaine Edmunds, and Nahshon Wright. I'm not going to sit here and argue that the Bears have to find a way to replace all the turnovers produced by Nahshon Wright and Kevin Byard. I understand that turnovers can be hard to predict, but at the same time, I think we could all be in agreement that those were 2 very good football players for the Chicago Bears in 2025. Albeit, you can argue about the right coverage statistics, but at the same time, the takeaway numbers are what they are.
I'm going to ask you a question here. You tell me if this is fair or an overreaction.
I like this.
The question is the Bears Super Bowl target window now been moved to 2027?
See, fair, but I don't like that. Like, here's my problem.
Well, I don't think anybody likes
like, if you're a Bears fan and you're looking at the Bears offseason moves and you're upset about it, like, I understand that side of things. You know why? Because the Bears haven't made the postseason in consecutive years since the early 2000s. And even before that, you got to go back to the 90s. Mm-hmm. So if you want to scrutinize and criticize everything the Bears have done, like if you want to point out, I see a problem at left tackle, I see a problem at center, I see a problem with the pass rush. I get that. I really do. You know why? Because I don't like this idea that you're trying to like push winning off. I don't like that at all, especially after you just made the divisional round of the playoffs. The Bears are a good team. You should be like trying your best to stay within this playoff window. Should you not be? Like the Bears haven't made the playoffs in back-to-back years in like 20 years. That's something.
No, it is. They play in a hard division. We talked briefly about the over-unders on CHGO yesterday on the win totals, and then I got them. We didn't talk about the whole division, though, but let me see if I can do this off the top of my head because I don't have them in front of me. I think the Lions were 10.5. Actually, the Lions might have been 11. 10.5. Packers 10.5. Bears 9.5, and Vikings 8.5. I think is what it was. Maybe the Packers were 9.5 too. I forget. But the point is, they're all bunched within like 2 wins of each other. The entire division in what's being forecasted right now, and there's no team that's like, the Raiders down there at 5.5 or anything like that in the division. So it's a tough division. I also don't know that the Packers have gotten better. I think they're probably having similar discussions right now about how they're worse. The Vikings have had to give up a bunch of players.
Lions too.
I don't know that any team in this division has gotten better. And I'll also say this, like, we talk about it every year, and I still believe it. What happens this week is oftentimes fool's gold. So sitting out these massive, big contracts, even if that question I brought, and I'm not necessarily, just because I asked the question doesn't necessarily mean I believe it. I think it's probably mostly an overreaction to the idea that, like, the Bears couldn't win in 2026. One thing I would say, though, is I think their chances of winning in 2027 might have gotten better, though, because they haven't had to mortgage anything from the future. They've left themselves more flexibility. But I also, there needs to be a little bit of a sense of urgency here with Caleb Williams on the last 2 years of this rookie deal.
The Bears, I think one way to look at this, the Bears really aren't adding. In a way, they're just replacing. Like Devin Bush replaces Tremaine Edmunds. Kobe Bryant replaces, you could argue, Jaquan Brisker or Kevin Byard. I don't think they're better at safety. The Bears haven't reached the point where they're actually like enhancing their roster. That may come through the draft, but at the same time, I love the draft to develop mindset. I do.
I do too.
But consider me a little bit. I've heard it. I heard that from Phil Emery. I heard that from Ryan Pace. All GMs say that across the league. You got to acknowledge that the draft is still 50-50, like first round picks, 50-50. And that percentage decreases as you go. So you could have, just because the Bears had a great draft class in 2025 doesn't mean they're going to repeat that success. But I don't know. I mean, the track record of the Bears selections at defensive tackle just exactly aren't like overwhelming impressive.
Yeah, and that's not over a small sample size anymore. I mean, this will be Ryan Poles' 5th draft. And they really haven't hit enough on defense, if we're being completely honest about it. So, put
it this way, like, sorry, I'm going to interject. Like, they haven't hit enough. In what you saw last year is a result of not hitting enough. They had to go out and sign Dayo Odangbo and Grady Jarrett to improve their trenches. And we all saw what that became. I think Grady Jarrett is still a pretty good player. Maybe Dayo Odangbo will be motivated in 2026, but at the same time, you have to adjust your expectations, knowing that the Bears constructed their contracts with exit points after this season.
Yeah. One of the things that I think could be a little concerning here as we sit here in March is that a lot of you look at, and I have like the spreadsheet in front of me right now about where this document I'm always working on about where players are ranked and what tiers they have. And the one thing that looks awfully similar between last year and this year right now is the situation at left tackle and the lack of a pass rush. I'm not seeing.
And I think that's a problem.
It is because those are premium positions, Johnsy. We're talking about premium positions. We're talking about tackle and edge rusher, protecting the quarterback, getting after the quarterback. That is what this league is about. That's what this sport is about.
Yeah. You don't feel good about signing a former first round pick from the Browns who's been hurt a bit and hasn't started a full season since 2022.
Right, and they just reloaded on their offensive line, and moved on. So, no, it's a guy. It's a guy. Jedrick Wills. It's a guy to put in the mix, but I will say this: if you're kind of clinging to some hope, and we're being completely fair, last year there were some guys like Nahshon Wright and DeMarco Jackson DeMarco wasn't even in camp, right? And he just showed up at the last second and ends up being a guy who wins the Defensive Player of the Week award randomly. Nahshon Wright led the league in takeaways for an entire month of the season, just got paid by the Jets. So those are to the point I guess I'm trying to make people feel a little bit better. And I think we're actually doing a pretty good job here of looking at this both ways. There's been some curveballs here. I bet you Ryan Poles would even admit that. Obviously, the Drew Dalman thing being one of them. I'd love to hear some details on how the Kevin Byard saga went about, but there's a lot of time here. There's 6 months until the season starts. Nahshon Wright was picked up later. DeMarco Jackson was picked up after camp. You can still find solutions beyond even just the draft, which is the most important talent acquisition part. So, yeah. Should we talk about some of these other guys that we haven't gotten to yet?
Yep. We can run them down.
Okay. So, I don't think any of these guys made the show on Tuesday, did they? Cam Lewis.
Khalif Raymond was signed literally as we were signing off.
That's right. Yeah, they held that one, I think, to release that right after the special teams guy got done with his live show. Yeah. Let's do this right now. It's our segment called Checking It Out, sponsored by Old National Bank. Every play matters, whether it's on the field or in your financial life. The best teams win by delivering excellence at every level. Old National Bank, where relationships and results matter. Member FDIC. And we're checking out a bunch of the new additions, including Cam Lewis, Khalif Raymond, Jedrick Wills, Kentavious Scott as well. Since Khalif did sign right after the show on Tuesday. Should we start there?
Yeah. I know you like this move.
I do, but I do think there's some risk. So I think Khalif Raymond. So Khalif Raymond what I like about this is I think it's like a 2-for-1 type of situation, which is important to keep in mind as Jade Walker probably also has a chance to push for more playing time and actually get involved in the offense. So they lost Olamide Zaccheaus. That's one of the players they lost in free agency, right? So Khalif Raymond is a wide receiver / returner who can help fill Olamide Zaccheaus' role and Devin Duvernay's role, assuming they're not going to bring Duvernay back. He isn't signed anywhere at this point, unless I missed that. He has a little bit more. So in terms of replacing Olamide, I think it's pretty similar. We're talking about a guy who, on one hand, knows the offense, was with Ben Johnson, Antoine Randall in Detroit, so that's good. He can give you 20 to 40 catches, depending on how much he actually plays, right? Because maybe Jade Walker eats into that share a little bit. The wide receiver room is going to look different. DJ Moore's not there, too. So there's some targets that are available out there. I think a lot of those are going to be eaten up, hopefully, by Colson Loveland and Roma Dunze in terms of, targets that probably went DJ Moore's way. I'm obviously talking different usage, but just overall passing attempts, the amount of balls that are thrown. In the return game, this is where I think there's a little bit of a risk. So Khalif is going to give you a little bit more burst. And I thought there were a number of times last year where if you had just that little extra gear, Duvernay could have gone all the way. Probably one. I think they missed out on at least one touchdown last year. Most special teams coaches will tell you, yeah, that one definitely could have gone. We just needed one more block, or we just needed that one more missed tackle. Typically, to get a return to go all the way, you need your returner to make a guy miss along the way. You're not going to block everybody. He's got to make somebody miss. He's got to run away from somebody. I think Khalif Raymond has a little bit more of that ability than Devin Duvernay did. On the other hand, he does not have as much experience returning kicks. And I thought Duvernay was a much better kick returner than he was punt returner. So I think you've upgraded a punt returner, and I'm just curious. Raymond only had 6 kick returns last year. So does somebody else get in the mix there? Do they use other players? Blackwell has been used there. Does Burden get used there? Just keep an eye on that. I don't know that it's definitely going to be Khalif Raymond. I think it can be. I kind of hope it is. But, he's also 31 years old. He might be slowing down. That's what I mean by some of this risk involved. Like Duvernay is probably almost your safer option, but I'm willing to take the risk because I think it could lead to some bigger, more explosive plays.
It's about having the right expectations. Really, that's it. He's not going to come in here and light the world on fire, but you like the fit because of Ben Johnson, because of Randall L. He's got a lot of experience working with those guys, and he brings in a different body type and skill set to that receivers room, and you like the returning experience, but obviously there's limitations to that as well. I like the Cam Lewis move. It's capable depth with a player who has played on a playoff team for quite some time in the Buffalo Bills. Is he a starter? No, but he's played different positions all over the secondary in Buffalo, and I think having a chess piece like that or a reserve like that who can handle different roles carries immense value for 1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah, I view Cam Lewis as kind of a replacement for both CJ Gardner-Johnson and Nick McLeod, because he can play safety, he can play in the slot. He did both for the Bills last year. Started games, I believe, at both for them, or at least played starter snaps, filling in for guys. And remember, I know there's this emphasis and fans are like, who's going to play CJ Gardner-Johnson? Remember, CJ Gardner-Johnson wasn't even on the team until week 6. They needed to go out and get him because Kyler Gordon was hurt. So hopefully your plan is Kyler Gordon stays healthy this year and gives you what you want out of, what you think is a premium player there that you already gave a contract extension to and made the highest paid nickel at the time. So if Cam Lewis can be more of just your Nick McLeod, who's backing up, playing special teams, he's also a 4-phase special teamer. He can kick off, kick return, punt return, do all those for you. Then you don't really need to replace CJ Gardner-Johnson, but he does give you a little bit more ability to play safety than Nick McLeod did. So again, I view it kind of like Khalif Raymond, where he's actually replacing 2 players instead of just 1.
And he's faster. Again, upgrading the
speed
has been a priority.
And you know what? Kind of bringing this all full circle here in this first segment. As much as we talked about on paper, maybe this team not being as strong right now in March as they were when they finished in January because of the players that they've lost, I do think they're faster on defense, which was a glaring weakness, especially the second half of the season. And Ryan Poles said it a couple weeks ago in Indianapolis at the Combine, how they wanted to get faster on defense. So it's hard to say, oh, they're so much worse on defense when they, at the same time, I believe that they have gotten faster, and I do think that matters. One more question, though. The amount of takeaways, they got rid of all their takeaways, Jodsy. Byard led the league in takeaways. Nahshon Wright was right there. At one point, Tremaine Edmunds was tied for the lead in the middle of the season, too. He's out the door. So there's already was this talk about turnover luck and how you're not going to be able to replicate the takeaways. That seems like it's even harder to do when you've lost the players that got those takeaways.
Yeah. And I get, just like I said earlier in the show, those are immensely difficult to even like argue about replacing because turnovers, they're unpredictable in many aspects, but the Bears do prioritize them and how they're coaching. Like Al Harris's methods need to be mentioned as part of this conversation. Like, does Kobe Bryant buy into that? I imagine he does. He took the ball away in Seattle. Same thing with Bush. Like he had 2 pick sixes last year. So those are in his resume. I think those are positives. But at the same time, like I get it. Like criticize the Pro Bowl all you want, but Kevin Byard and Nahshon Wright went to the Pro Bowl because they were so good at taking the ball away. Quickly before we get to Jesse, what are your thoughts on Jedrick Wills and Kentavious Scott?
Yeah, I mean, depth pieces that maybe you're sort of looking like a Nahshon Wright that you can resurrect, get something more out of, especially in Will's case, I'd say. But if I'm also being completely honest, I got to do a little bit more homework on both of them.
Yeah.
Actually watch, especially on Kentavious Scott, watch some more tape on him, see what he could actually give.
I'm not sure Wills is going to even be on the roster.
Right.
Like, let's be honest. We're at the part of free agency where the agents aren't even releasing the contract money in their text to reporters, and there's a reason for that. Wills is a 10th overall pick from a few years ago for the Browns, but he hasn't played a full season since 2022. I don't think he played at all last season. So again, set the right expectation level. You could talk yourself into seeing promise potential based on his draft pedigree, but at the same time, please acknowledge that he didn't play at all last season.
Right. Yeah, it's important context. That was Checking It Out, sponsored by Old National Bank. Always appreciate our friends at Old National Bank. We do have Jesse coming up. One thing that just popped in my head though that we should bring up with the takeaways issue, because I'm sure somebody at House Hall will be watching this and being like, "Well, hey, wait a minute."
And it's Kentavious Street. The comments are correcting me. It's Kentavious Street. I'm sorry.
Oh, see, that's what I get for reading the rundown.
Also, like, again, set the right expectations. A 29-year-old rotational defensive tackle coming in who may or may not be on the roster come week 1.
Apologies to Kentavious.
Yes.
What I was going to say, though, a healthy Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon would go a long way, right? Because those guys, they were very, very limited in what they could give you last year in terms of takeaways, getting their hands on the ball, coverage, all those things that they wanted that Dennis Allen thought he was walking into, didn't have. So when we talk about replacing that takeaway production, it actually is kind of remarkable what the Bears were able to do last season without those guys doing those things for the most part. So if they're healthy, if they can bounce back, I think that's a big if, though. I mean, it's a little risky to just assume they're both going to be the same players that they were. Or I think in Kyler's case, he can be the same player, but he just needs to be out there. He needs to play 17 games. He needs to not miss time with soft tissue injuries. But if they can, then yes, that will help replace the turnover.
Yes, it's a completely different defense. You have one of the best cornerbacks, one of the best nickelbacks in the league. But again, there's concerns and questions that need to be addressed and hopefully answered by week 1.
All right, so Jesse Merrick covers the Raiders, Silver and Black Sports Network. We had him on before the Bears-Raiders game. That feels like a long time ago. It was. Lots of things have changed. Maxx Crosby was an absolute beast in that game. He was briefly not a member of the Raiders. Now he's back. We're going to figure out what this all means, what's next in this crazy, wild Maxx Crosby saga. That's all coming up next. But first,
whether it's on the field or in your financial life, the best teams win by delivering excellence at every level. At Old National Bank, we believe every play matters. From everyday checking to long-term planning and commercial banking, our team is here to build momentum and help you move the ball forward, just like Ben Johnson's offense does all the time. It all starts with a plan tailored for you by professionals you can trust. From simple tasks to bigger financial moments, you can count on us to coordinate your needs with steady, knowledgeable guidance that brings clarity and confidence to each step. It's a partnership designed to help you feel supported, not just today, but well into the future. So whether you're celebrating a win, hopefully more for the Bears, rebuilding after a tough loss, or gearing up for whatever comes next, we've got your back with tools, insights, and an expert crew that's always in your corner. Old National Bank, member FDIC, where relationships and results matter.
And whether you're working out or hanging out or doing a podcast, having comfortable gear is very, very important. That's why we're both rocking Fabletics right now. I had to pop on the sweatshirt to show it off because we love wearing these comfortable.
I love their shirts. Their shirts might be the best thing they have.
Yeah, the shirts are excellent. The pants, everything. You can't see my pants right now. But the joggers are outstanding. Fabletics activewear for men feels like the kind of high-end product you'd pay a couple $100 for, but you get that same premium fit and durability at a tiny fraction of the price. Joggers, hoodies, shorts, t-shirts, even jackets and underwear. Johnsy's rocking a quarter zip right now. I definitely need more shirts. I'm planning to order those. Everything from Fabletics feels soft, breathable, flexible, perfect for workouts, traveling, or anytime you want to feel great throughout the day. Right now, you can get 80% off everything when you sign up as a VIP. Just head to fabletics.com/CHGO. You'll take a quick style quiz. Be sure to select CHGO when prompted to unlock your 80% off. That's fabletics.com/CHGO. All right. Time to welcome back our new friend, Jesse Merrick, to the program. I'm sure he's had a very busy couple weeks here. It's been a wild offseason for the Raiders. And on top of everything else going on with Maxx Crosby, they signed a bunch of relevant players too. So, Jesse, thank you. First of all, thank you for jumping on with us again. Good to see you. And just what have these last, I mean, really since like Friday night, what's it been like trying to cover Maxx Crosby and the Raiders?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see the bags under my eyes here.
We see them.
Yeah, they're pretty apparent and pretty normal during the year for me. But in the offseason, they go away. For the last 5 days, I've thought I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And every night, the world of football and the Raiders in particular have other plans. It has been wild. I've been covering this team since 2019 when I used to work for NBC here in town. And I've been here for a lot. Obviously, the COVID years, John Gruden, the email scandal, Henry Ruggs, and that horrible situation. There was just so many things that have gone on, and obviously all the turnover and turmoil with all the coaches. This stretch of 24 hours with this Maxx Crosby stuff, honestly, I would put it up there, possibly even tops of just wildest moments. When the news came down about the Raiders or the Ravens bailing on the trade, I was like hitting everybody. I'm like, there's no way. This isn't real. Like, what's going on here? And I understand it was still the tampering window and things could happen. And it wasn't the official new league year and all that. But everyone's like, yeah, no, this is real. And they're going back on it. So then you're just trying to put the pieces together for what that means for the Raiders. And obviously they come into free agency with all that cap space, spent $281 million. And you're like, okay, well, are they going to be able to pay these guys? And until this morning, actually, they hadn't even made the signing of Tyler Linderbaum official. So Raider Nation's freaking out. Now they kind of breathe a sigh of relief. There's still a couple guys that need to be announced, but those will be announced. So essentially, they paid $281 million in free agency, the most aggressive team in the league, and they're getting Maxx Crosby back. And for everybody that hasn't seen it yet, last night, too, Maxx Crosby went on Twitter and sent out a post that said, quote, "Everything happens for a reason. Believe nothing you hear and half of what you see. I'm a Raider. I'm back. Run that. You know what?" And so now Raider Nation's going nuts. I jumped on a show last night and everybody's like, hey, he's locked in. He's ready to roll. And Maxx is mad, which I think is a scary thing for a lot of people around the league if he does indeed play for the Raiders.
So where do you think this goes next? Are you buying what Maxx Crosby is sharing on social media with that post with the Undertaker included? Yeah. I appreciate the use of that GIF. Does he stay a Raider, or do the Raiders still believe he wants out?
Yeah, I think, look, Maxx was pretty quiet, or at least non-committal throughout this whole process of all the trade rumors and everything. Even when he would hop on a podcast other than his own, which was very rare, he wouldn't commit to saying anything. He just kind of kept saying, no matter what I say, people are going to take it out of context and all this stuff. He wouldn't address it one way or the other. This, to me, is a pretty concrete thing to say. I'm a Raider. I'm back. that to me feels like a guy that is, again, mad and probably doesn't want to go through that situation again, completely honest. Like when you go somewhere, maybe someone is like, hey, no, yeah, we're not going to do this because of the long-term thing. That's what you think maybe. Obviously, there's the whole like, the Ravens got cold feet and everything like that. But long-term wise, they ultimately felt like, this wasn't going to be the move for them as well to be able to invest 2 first-round picks in him. So maybe he and his camp feels like, hey, what if another team feels that way? Even when I'm healthy and would pass a physical, even though nobody expected him to pass a physical this time around. So long story short, all that to say, like, yes, I think Maxx is a Raider, with the caveat being, for now, I think they're going to go into training camp with him. I think, honestly, they'll probably start the season with him. And then let's see what this season looks like for the Raiders. Maxx is probably saying, hey, I'm committed to being the Raiders. Let's hit it this season. And then kind of wait and see mode when the year comes around. Because I would not be shocked. Let's say, again, the Raiders inject a whole lot of talent. They still have a whole long ways to go before, they're a real legit team. Like they've made it clear that they have a mountain to climb and they're not trying to climb it in a day. And everything they've done is a step in the right direction, but they still got to prove it out on the field, So I wouldn't be shocked if, we get into the season and maybe the Raiders start to struggle again and the record ain't looking too hot. And maybe teams, come calling. And if Maxx is playing well, that trade value gets kicked back up, because I don't think the Raiders are going to trade him for anything less than what they got, 2 first-round picks. So I think they're going to stick to their guns. So I think this is something that is still going to be talked about all offseason, during training camp, and then honestly even during the year as well. So that'll be kind of the wait and see mode of, let's see just how long this goes on, unless we get a firm, I am a Raider, I do not want to be traded, from Maxx up at the podium the next time we get a chance to hear from him.
Well, that's the other wrinkle here that I feel like hasn't been explained, because this all started because, Maxx wants out.
Yeah.
On the other hand, as we talked about it here in Chicago, like I think we all sort of agreed this is a move that would make sense for the Raiders, where they're at in their organization, to acquire draft capital, maybe get out of that contract and try to reset some things here. They honestly spent more money in free agency than I even expected, even though we knew they had the space. I guess that's my question, is like, where do the Raiders stand on this? Because maybe they still want to move them.
Yeah, look, I think it's a win-win, to be completely honest. I mean, they haven't wanted to actually move him from the get-go. This was Maxx sitting down with Mark Davis saying, hey, I've had enough. I need out. That's essentially how that all went down. And it was handled very quietly. Again, he didn't go out in the media, blasting it out there like we saw Myles Garrett do and things like that. And obviously ends up being a weird situation, but then everybody just kind of moves on. But I think ultimately the Raiders reluctantly were like, okay, yeah, we're going to trade him. But again, stuck to their guns. We're like, we're not trading him until we get what we want. We hear about, the deal that the Cowboys floated their way. What was it? A first, a second, and a player. And the guy that they just traded to the Niners, I believe, was the player that they apparently had been thrown in there. But they had stuck to their guns, said, no. We want 2 first-round picks. The Ravens come along, offered the 14th overall pick and then a 2027 first. And so that's where I think that's when they were willing to move on from him. Having said that, I agree with you. Again, I think you keep Maxx Crosby just because he is an elite player and you build up the team around him. He's still, 29 years old. Like, yes, he's got some injury issues and stuff, but that's a guy that is just Mr. Raider. He is like the heartbeat of this franchise. So I think you keep him for that. And the deal, honestly, isn't that crazy, in terms of who he is and what his position is. But when you look at the return that they did get, the 2 first-round picks, that completely changed this rebuild for the Raiders. And you look at what they were possibly going to be able to do in the draft, particularly at 14, by adding another player alongside Fernando Mendoza, and then having extra draft capital in next year's draft, where everybody seemingly wants picks and everyone's going to be chasing quarterbacks, and you already have your quarterback. So then you could truly go best player available at 2 positions that are non-quarterback spots, and really kind of start to do almost kind of what they did when they got Brock Bowers, just get a dog and inject even more young talent into your roster. And again, now too, look at what they've done in free agency, not only spending a ton of money, but spending a ton of money on young guys that are 25 to 27 years old. So you start to look at it and you're like, gosh, that would be a full-on youth movement for them. And again, move on from a guy that the Ravens weren't willing to invest in long-term. So I get it from that regard. But now, again, you're re-injecting this guy that now can completely change what you do on defense with some of the pieces that you brought in. And we still haven't even gotten to the draft yet either. So let's say they go into the draft and are able to land 2 or 3 starters, both sides of the ball, not total, not like 6 or anything. I'm talking about total 2 to 3 starters in the draft. We'll see what they look like defensively. Again, I'm not saying they're a playoff contender by any means, but at the very least, a winning record, which would be, I think, massive for this team, because many people were probably thinking maybe next season they only win 6 games. That could just kind of expedite turnaround for them.
As someone who's followed Crosby's career for some time now, how do you think he's taking this personally? Like how do you think for a guy who seems extremely motivated, like how does this factor into his list of motivations?
Yeah. So Max was the dude that during COVID, he was in his backyard doing like, hand drills and things like that, slapping the palm trees. His hands were all bloody and all this stuff. Like this guy just like works nonstop. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't need any extra motivation. But when he's mad, like you see it even more. And that's the thing, like this chip on his shoulder, like he feels like nobody wanted him type of thing. And I think that's part of why now he's making this commitment to the Raiders, because he's like, you guys have steadfastly wanted me this whole time, even though they do go trade him ultimately and all those things. They've been clear publicly, behind the scenes, all of that they want him to be a Raider. They just reluctantly had to come to that decision. And so I think now this is him saying, hey, they didn't want me. The Cowboys doctor was also involved, so the Cowboys didn't want me. So maybe he feels like a lot of people don't want me. A lot of people are doubting me. Now it's my chance to go out there and prove people. And Max is so much the guy. I mean, all the tattoos he's got he's got Jordan, he's got Muhammad Ali. I forget what the other one is. It might be Kobe as well. He's got all kinds of like these guys that are just these like master motivated guys that just play so much better, when they've got something to be mad about. And I think that's what he has. And so I think that's something where he's probably going to be thinking about this each and every down, and I feel for the Raiders tackles in practice too, because this guy doesn't take it easy on them in practice if he does indeed start practicing for them. I mean, I've been here and seen plenty of coaches screaming and yelling at him for wrecking practice. Also, watch out for Fernando Mendoza too. He may clip you a little bit. I don't know, because I've seen him hit some quarterbacks in practice too. So yeah, this is a guy that's mad and now feels like he has something to prove after being in an All-Pro and a multi-time, 5-time Pro Bowler, all those things. So this is a guy that's going to come in with like a Dorito-sized chip on that shoulder for next season. That's going to just kind of be crazy to watch. Again, ultimately, if he does play for the Raiders or someone else, he feels like he has something to prove.
It's really too bad we're not getting a Raiders-Ravens game.
Oh, God, 2027. That's when it's coming. That's when it's coming. I wish it was this year, though. God, it'd be so good.
So, all right, so we'll have to see if he's still a Raider in 2027. Yeah. Yeah, I imagine in your position, you've had to watch his podcast.
Yeah.
And pay attention to everything. What did you make of the Caleb Williams episode?
I thought it was interesting. You know what I mean? Look, the connection, everything like that, the timing too. That to me, more than anything of the content or any of that stuff, the timing is what got me. Because again, like Max is a consumer of media. He very well may watch this at some point. Like he literally he's got stuff like. The number of times I've had someone be like, hey, Max saw this that was on Twitter or whatever it is, or anything like that. And he even says up on the podium, he's like, I see everything, and kind of gives everybody like a little grin. He knows what he's doing when he brings on a Caleb Williams onto the show, So the timing to me is what stood out more than anything. And so that I thought was interesting, very intriguing, having the relationship, all that stuff. Look, if any team's going to do it, I know you guys missed out on somebody to pair opposite Sweat. So, I'd just be curious to see what the trade package is going to be, because it seems like everybody's trying to do the move now for pennies on the dollar, which I get. Why would you not try to do that after the situation just blew up and try and take advantage of the situation the Raiders are in? But it seems like they are going to be standing pat at it. So I guess I would throw the question back at you guys too, in that sense of like, what is a realistic trade offer that you think that they'd be willing to throw the Raiders' way?
I don't think they would part with 2 firsts.
No.
Yeah.
It is kind of where I've been at on this. I think that they would part with a 1 and maybe a 2, maybe similar to what that Cowboys trade was. I know there was some smoke out there at some point. The Bears offered 2 firsts. I don't know if I believe that or not, but plus it didn't really matter because the Ravens had better first round picks, or at least this year.
14, 14's big.
It was better capital. So I don't know, but I guess what my follow-up to what you were saying is, because this is still relevant going forward, in your mind, are the Bears a team that you guys will be keeping an eye on too? Like if this goes into training camp, if all of a sudden, like you pointed out at the start of the interview here, maybe the season doesn't, maybe it's a trade deadline type of situation. We've seen Ryan Poles make trade deadline deals before. That's how he acquired Montez Sweat a few years ago. Is this something here in Chicago we should continue to watch, because maybe that price point changes as all these other elements to it change as well?
Yeah, no, I definitely would. Again, like I the way I read Max's post is that like he is committed, but again, like if somebody offers something off the charts and maybe the rebuild looks like it's going to take longer, and maybe when the season comes around, he's like, okay, I thought I was committed, but like, and I thought maybe you guys had injected a lot of talent into the team and things were going to be different, but they aren't. So like, let's try this again. So yeah, the Bears would be a team I'd be watching. The other one too, just seemingly always make something happen, is the Eagles. Those are you guys, and the Eagles, I think, would be the two teams I'd be paying attention to, to see how this all kind of transpires. Because obviously it seems like Cowboys are out. They've made that apparent through the media and everything like that. So I would say it's probably down to you guys and the Eagles, depending on what else happens, over the course of the next, 6-8 months and everything like that. But I would imagine you guys probably in the driver's seat. Of that. I mean, I know you guys were the odds-on favorite, right, to land him before the Ravens ultimately jumped in with that with the 14th overall pick. So yeah, I'd be watching the situation with you guys for sure. It all makes sense. Again, the relationship with Caleb. You guys are obviously a team on the rise, and what Ben Johnson has done there. Shoot, the Raiders were trying to get Ben to come here to Vegas. Like, tell me Max wouldn't want to play for him. So I would imagine definitely one of the teams that not only Max is keeping an eye on, but also all of us will be as well.
To switch gears quickly to the offensive line, yep. Tyler Linderbaum is a player that we talked a lot about here in Chicago, especially after the surprise retirement of Drew Dalman. Yeah. $27 million a year for a center. Like, what did you make of the signing for the best center in the free agent market?
Yeah, pretty crazy, right? Creed Humphrey was at what, 18 mil, so a $9 million difference a year. Insane to reset the market like that. But I think when you look at it, you have to frame it as like an interior offensive lineman deal, just because of obviously center is important on every team, but specifically with Clint Kubiak and this offense that he wants to run, like the center is the linchpin of this entire thing. And so you look at it more just as an interior offensive lineman deal. And I believe the highest paid interior offensive lineman is about 24 mil a year. So, or 23.5. So, about $3.5 million more than that, which is still a big bump in pay. But you're getting a guy that seemingly is in the prime of his career, 25, about to be 26 years old, already a 3-time Pro Bowler, and just, again, a perfect fit in each and every way possible. And to be able to allow him to come in and take so much off of the plate of Fernando Mendoza and expedite the growth of your young quarterback too. I think, again, like we talked about, the Raiders had the money to spend. So why not spend it at the position that is so important to you? Where last year there was so much drama around the Raiders center position. I don't know how much national news it made, but between Pete Carroll's sons and not liking Jackson Powers Johnson, who they drafted in the second round the year prior to be their center, and is he a center? Is he a guard? Instead, they go with a guy in Jordan Meredith, who was a former undrafted free agent and played horribly, objectively along an offensive line that was just a mess. So one of those deals just for them to be able to solidify that right from the start with this system, open up holes for Ashton Jeanty too. I mean, the Raiders averaged 0.5, half a yard before contact. I mean, it's just insane how bad they were offensive line-wise. So I'm okay with the overspend, but it is an eye-popping number, and they have to be right on this, because if they're wrong on this one, that totally sets back all the confidence that now everybody's starting to feel about where they're going. So they're banking on, obviously, Kubiak in that offense and the way he's able to run the ball and everything he's built up around that, but also Rick Dennison, the offensive line coach, who's the guy that's been attached to the Kubiak family for so long, that they're going to be able to elevate that offensive line and get even more out of a Tyler Linderbaum. And two, let's also not forget it's a 3-year deal, so the bill for this one is probably going to come up again in 2 years. Like he's not going to go play on that third year of that deal. So, right. So that's the other thing that you got to keep in mind as well.
So, and that's kind of how I want to wrap this all up, because, it's Linderbaum, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Malcolm Kuntz, Kwity Paye, Eric Stokes, Jalen Naylor.
So much money spent.
I mean, it's a lot. But that's to me, one of the more interesting wrinkles of this whole Maxx Crosby saga, because so many other teams would have just been completely screwed.
Yeah.
Once the trade fell through, like they would have had to back out of deals or still traded him for pennies on the dollar, because that top 51 hits on you hit yesterday, Wednesday, 3:00 Chicago time here. You got to get under the salary cap. So the Raiders are good though. Like they were, they're good. But what about going forward? Like, I guess my question is at some point, are they going to be in a lot of cap trouble, or I guess what I'm really getting at, forced to move Maxx Crosby because of how this all played out the last few days.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're okay going into 2027 as well, So they're in a good spot cap space wise, which again, like you noted, after spending that kind of money, that is insane to be able to say that, to be able to welcome Maxx Crosby back to the fold and still have that. Having said that, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of restructuring done with Max and possibly a couple other guys as well, just to alleviate even more of that. But again, from what I've heard from everybody involved, like they're good this year, next year, like good positioning wise in terms of the cap and everything like that. And they'll still be, I believe, top 8 is what I was told in terms of cap space heading to 2027, the way things currently project now. So still really not bad. But again, I think we'll probably see some restructuring going on. And again, that will kind of tell you as well, maybe what the future looks like for Max too. If there's some more money thrown in there, what that kind of looks like as well. I have heard, and I tried to look into this and haven't been able to get the answer, but I heard that there's some sort of thing in Max's contract where they can convert it to where like the cap hit's only like 15 mil or something really, where it lowers it by a decent amount. So that's one of the reasons why I do believe there's going to be some sort of restructuring that's going to happen here as well, just to alleviate it a bit more, allow them to bring in more depth pieces. Because I think that's the worry more than anything else. They went and were big spenders and all that stuff. Now it's a matter of like filling out the depth of this team, which was also lacking in terms of talent too. So that's something they need to be able to address. And that again is why I think we're going to see some restructuring and some cap gymnastics, as they've called it in hockey before.
Well, Jesse, thank you. I'm sure the story is far from over.
Don't say that. I want to get some sleep. Okay, don't say that.
Well, hopefully it's over for a couple months now. I'm sure you were pretty happy to see that tweet from Max last night.
You have no idea. I literally, so just inside baseball here, I was dropping my girlfriend off at a friend of hers party, and I was like running to grab dinner real fast, and then I saw the tweet, and I was like, oh my God. So I had to like run back home, back into the home studio and jump on a live show. We did it. It was great. Raider Nation was fired up, but I was just like, I was literally like all across town, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm not home for this massive news and all this stuff. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to, one, see that tweet, and two, hopefully be able to take a sigh of relief after today too, because we're going to hear from a lot of these Raiders free agents, and then it's just kind of be a little bit of like a whoof, okay, now let's ride off to the sunset, look at the draft, and see what happens from here.
All right. Well, it's Jesse Merrick from Silver and Black Sports Network. We always appreciate hearing from you, and thanks for jumping on with obviously a lot of busyness going on in your life and your work schedule right now. So thanks for making time for us.
Of course. I appreciate you guys. Good time chopping it up with you.
All right. There he is, Jesse Merrick. Good stuff. Crazy saga.
Yeah. So if you're the Bears,
and
obviously you're going to re-engage in some type of talks, at least just feel it out with the Raiders, where are you still drawing the line? Like, you got to move that line down a bit more than what you were previously discussing, correct?
Why?
Because
the Ravens got spooked?
Yeah. Well, I
guess that's
probably because you have more leverage now, because if anything, you have the Raiders maybe feeling anxious about, well, their cap situation or what the market can really present itself as.
But that's where I'm with Jesse. Like, if I'm them, I guess the only urgency, and I said this yesterday, I think the next deadline, there could have been a crazy deadline of the start of the new league year, because they committed too much money and they had to move them, and that would have left them with no leverage, and that would have been a really bad spot to be in. So fortunately for the Raiders, they weren't really in that position. To me, the next deadline is the draft, because if you want a first-round pick to pair with Mendoza this year, obviously you got to make the move for the draft to get that. But I'm with him. Like, let this thing breathe. Maybe see what it looks like.
That's the smart thing to do if you're the Raiders, but you're the Raiders.
Right. I mean, you could still, because the price could come back up. If Maxx Crosby looks dominant, if he comes, but I guess that's part of the risk too. Whatever the Ravens saw. Yeah, well, that's the thing, because whatever the Ravens saw, they didn't like. And nobody knows more about that than the Raiders right now, right? So where that knee is, how much they think he will actually be dominant to start the season. Because I hear what Jesse's saying about, maybe he plays well. Maybe the Raiders are struggling, but there's also a good chance he starts the season slow because he's coming off the injury.
All right, so how does Ryan Poles improve his pass rush? Let's wrap up this podcast with the ultimate temperature check.
Draft.
There's no... Yeah, it's so easy to say, but there's no guarantee of which player is going to be available to you at 25. The best player on your board could be a safety.
I know. So, look, I'm still willing to give up this year's first round pick for Crosby. I've been kind of on the record.
That's it.
Well, first and a second next year. I've said that.
Okay.
Maybe I'm moving that second back to a third, or maybe I need something back in return for giving up another second. I still think he's really good. I think the chance. One thing that I actually like, he got the full meniscus repair. That helps your longevity, because when you trim it, you're having more, bone on bone. There's less cartilage there. So I like that he went for the full meniscus repair. If I was one of these teams trading for him, I'd actually be happy about that. As murky as it's made the situation more murky because the recovery is longer, but it doesn't bother me. So I really haven't moved much off my price point, but I'm not giving up 2 first-round picks. I've said that all along.
Well, the interesting part of this conversation is whether or not the Raiders will move off their price point, and it doesn't sound like it.
Well, they can afford to be stubborn, yeah.
Yeah,
unless they're really. What we don't know is what I said earlier. Are they? Do they really want that first-round pick this year?
I strongly feel like the Bears have to make some form of. There's got to be more investment on this defensive line that tells you that the pass rush will improve, albeit just slightly heading into the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Every GM will tell you that you try to eliminate needs as best you can heading into the draft. And pass rush, to me, is still a strong need. Maybe that's signing Cam Jordan to a 1-year deal. Joey Bosa for a 1-year deal. I could get behind those moves because you could argue there's some pass rush ability coming along the way, even if it's just as a situational pass rusher at this point in their careers.
Yeah, because right now the moves have not. Honestly, so far the moves have shown you that they still need Maxx Crosby.
That's why we're talking about it.
That's why we're going to continue to talk about it. And if he does go into training camp with the Raiders, I mean, I know I'll be keeping an eye on him for potential. Remember, Khalil Mack, Micah Parsons moved right before the season, like Labor Day weekend. So it could be that. It could be trade deadline. And it's not the worst thing for the Bears either, because everybody will have a better idea how healthy he actually is based on what happens in the preseason and training camp, right?
Oh, and the medical exam is going to look a lot different just a month from now.
Right. So maybe that's another thing right before the draft. I think that's the next deadline. So unless something crazy happens here in the next, few days, which I don't know, after Max's tweet last night, it seems like this might die down for a little bit. Maybe that's what everybody else needs, but who
knows? Maxx Crosby has all those tattoos of like self-motivated athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Tom Brady wins him over and he's next on his back or something.
Tom Brady tattoo?
Tom Brady tattoo
on his back? TB12?
Just
have it put like right here?
Yeah, I mean, he's up there with the Jordan-like, Kobe Bryant-like self-motivated athletes.
He is, but they don't seem to have gotten, hit. They haven't really hit it off. It doesn't seem like,
time heals all wounds, Adam.
Maybe. All right. Well, fun show today. Appreciate everybody being here live with us. Do we have any supers?
We have one.
Okay. Let's get our one super out of here for Nick Lowry, $2. Bears draft. I'm going to assume that's Weegent from Iowa to return.
Is that Carm?
It might be. He loves
Carm's guy.
I like him too. Would be a little redundant though if you're signing Khalid Freeman.
Younger. Out with the old and with the new.
Definitely younger. But they did give They gave Cleve Raymond a contract like he's going to be on the team.
$5 million,
though.
right? $5 million.
Yeah. I think it's up to $5 million if he earns it. I don't know. All right, we got to get off to cover what's going on with the Bears today. The free agents will be introduced, the ones that they have signed, and Ryan Poles will speak. And there's a lot to get to from that. So might have a mini pod come out of that or something like that. We'll have you covered, whatever
Probably
happens.
tomorrow, yeah.
As always, CHGO Bears tonight at 7 p.m. We move that show back to cover everything that Ryan Poles had to say today. So that be on the lookout for that. Come join us over there. On your way out, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Appreciate everybody joining the channel on YouTube. And, of course, listening to wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's always available that way for you. Please rate and review the pod. You can become a diehard to get more of our content at allchgo.com. We got a lot of that that's been popping up all week and will continue throughout the weekend. So make sure you become a diehard. You can use code Jahns, Jahns, to sign up and get a great deal. $36 for the whole year, which includes a free t-shirt, Hoge Jahns merch. And I actually have my new Hoge Jahns sweatshirt come. I think it's getting delivered today. Remember, I lit the other one on fire.
Oh, the choices we make.
By leaning up at a heater against a heater.
Don't do that. Watch where your feet are.
Bears Rams tailgate that we had. Mistake. So shout out to everybody watching, listening. Appreciate each and every one of you. Again, hit the like button on the way out. Thanks to Old National Bank for being our presenting sponsor. As always, Katie Langen for producing. Talk to you next time.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.